I'm just reading a piece by Matt Hughes. It's an exclusive. It's in the Daily Mail, page 72. Blues risk-breaking finance rules. And he introduces it by saying Everton are preparing to negotiate with the Premier League over their financial accounts amid fears that they could become the first club to breach the top flight's profit and sustainability rules. So you heard a little bit about what Don King had to say there.
Yep.
If they do go down, and it's a realistic possibility when you see where they are on the table, just a point above the relegation zone, a massive loss to Tottenham. That's going to break a lot of spirits if they weren't already on the floor, Cass. If they go down, how much of a financial pickle, I'm trying to think of a better word than that, but how bad could this get for them?
Well, the evidence was there at the start of the season with their transfers. You know, they took in Andrus for a free transfer, Demari Gray for $1 million, 1.7. So they were obviously having troubles then. They also went through a pandemic, and they've also added to that, they've paid overinflated prices for players. And with that, probably ridiculous contracts to go alongside that, with huge money being spent. So it's like a treble effect, isn't it, of what I've just mentioned there. So I don't think this is that surprising that people are talking about the difficulties of the club financially. Look, this club was run by David Moyes. It was very prudent. It was very sensible, and debts were not, within the hundreds of millions. It was a bare minimum. And now we've got a club that have been just reckless, and I say negligent, probably for the last 5 years. And it's going to come at a huge cost because, well, as Harry Redknapp said there, this is a really poor team. I think it's a bit of an Eddie Howe situation when he walked into Newcastle, that Eddie had to change 3 of the back 4 immediately to have any chance of staying up. Now, obviously, Frank Lampard can't do that, but you need to change at least 3 of the 4 of that back 4. So, huge problems for Frank.
Do you think Frank has got the tools, and do you think he can turn it round, Alistair, with the team that he's got performing the way they are at the moment?
I think, bizarrely, he's probably, fortunate position is not the correct term, but he's lucky there's teams down there that, if not, they're certainly as poor as Everton are at this moment in time. They've got some massive games coming up. They really have. What have they got? I think they've got Wolves, Watford and Newcastle coming up. Newcastle, I must admit, I was looking at Leeds and I was at their cup tie against Boreham Wood and they were poor, mate, really poor. First half and Rondon scores a couple of goals, second half, nothing game. But you know that way you're looking at a team, you're thinking, there's not a lot here. I did think that if they could get Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin on the pitch, between now and the end of the season for a sustained period, they would be okay because I thought there'd be enough goals in it. But continued to look at them defensively, I mean, they're all over the place. Mira's not fit, obviously. I look at Keane, his confidence looks shot to pieces at the back with Holgate there, Coleman, he's playing Kenny. I think they are in big trouble. However, you look at down the bottom, Leeds United, I know there was an improvement.
Ali, on that, just one quick word. If you look at who they've beaten under Frank, very out-formed Brentford.
Yep.
They've beaten Leeds, who'd been on a disastrous run, and they've beaten Boreham Wood. They were awful against Southampton. I mean, that result sort of gone under the radar, but they were awful at St Mary's. They've obviously been beaten by Spurs. Newcastle, the defeat at Newcastle would have been incredibly worrying for Evertonians. So there was a lot there that you'd be concerned about. But they have a bit of a buffer, Ali, don't they? They've got that little bit of a buffer.
100%, Cass. And the thing that you said there probably backs that up a little bit as well, because you did say the 2 teams that they've beat are in it as well, and that's Brentford and Leeds, and Leeds are certainly in it. So I think they might have enough, to get themselves out of it. Burnley are one of these teams, Cass. If you're playing Burnley last game of the season, you needed it to stay up. That's the one the team you wouldn't want to play because they're capable of getting results under Sean Dyche. So they're in a real dogfight, and I know they've got a couple of games in hand, particularly in Leeds above them, and they've got 3 games in hand in Brentford above them. But I do think they'll have enough to get out, but I think a lot of that will be down to the fact there might be 1 or 2 teams worse than them.
Yeah.
Going back to their finances, what Matt Hughes is writing today is that they recorded combined losses of over 260 million between 2017 and 2020. There is a little bit of movement in terms of the lack of revenue for clubs because of COVID. So for those COVID-affected seasons, there were 2 of them. But it appears that Everton would still be at risk of being found in breach. So Everton apparently it's going to lead them to petition the Premier League for allowances to be made due to COVID. If they are found in guilty of this, or in breach of this, Premier League rules state that the club in breach of spending rules can be fined or docked points. But they haven't actually done that to any club yet. Club's never been found guilty of that yet. So essentially, it could get bad to worse. There's lots of things coming into play here. Things could worsen for Everton, of course, with their finances, because they severed links with their major sponsor, Alisher Usmanov, last week, which reportedly could cost them 300 million over the next 20 years. I suppose they've got to find a way to sort this out quickly and hope that they avoid this points deduction as well, which I don't know when that would come into play. I think it's the end of the month. I'm just reading. The Premier League have set a deadline of later this month for all clubs to submit up-to-date accounts. So we'll find out more.
Well, what would be a little bit more worrying for Evertonians, Laura and Ali, here is that there might be a sale of the most promising players, like Calvert-Lewin, Gordon might go. You know, this is what could happen to these football clubs if it's that disastrous that players who are favourites at, Goodison Park could leave the club.
If you want to find out more of that report that I'm reading, Matt Hughes, it's an exclusive. It's in the Daily Mail, page 72. It really details everything that could happen and what's leading to the situation at the moment with their finances at Everton.
talkSPORT Breakfast with Laura Woods, Monday to Wednesday morning 6 till 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.